Dear students, we go through lesson 2, Home Sweet Home. Let's go through the book. Anton, Yona, Django shouted angrily to his son and daughter. Who is Anton? Anton's son. Iona, daughter. Django shouted. Django is father of these two children. Shouted angrily, uttered loud cry, an expression of emotion. Shouted angrily to his son and daughter. Above, and then what is Anton? Who is Anton? The son, and Iona, daughter. Django, father. He was shouting angrily to his son and daughter. Why? Stop beating that drum and clanging that tambourine. You know drum. Tambourine, do you know? Look at the small child in the picture. An instrument she is carrying. That is called tambourine. Put them away in your cupboard. Keep these instruments in the cupboard. Not only that, what else they should do? And put away those other toys too. The other toys are there, you can see. They keep them before I trip over them. Before I trip means catch one's feet on something and stumble or fall. So keep those things in the cupboard, otherwise he would trip over them. The children looked gloomy, sad. However, they stopped the music and carried the instruments to their cupboard in the corner of the room. Django had been trying to read the newspaper, and the noise of the 9-year-old son's drumming and his 7-year-old daughter's accompaniment be a companion, assistant to make the sound, accompaniment on the tambourine had given him a headache and made him irritable, annoyed. Although the drumming and jangling had stopped, Anton and Iona being obedient, these drumming and jangling was stopped because the children were obedient. Anton and Iona being obedient children. The throbbing in Django's temple was pulsating or beating with a strong, regular rhythm. Although they stopped drumming and use of tambourine, the sound remained in the head of Django, throbbing, pulsating or beating with rhythm in his head. So the throbbing in Django's temples continued. It, it felt as if the percussion section of a large orchestra still played at its loudest in his head. He felt that the percussion section of orchestra means the section of tambourine and drum was creating noise in his head. Django's wife, Monica, emerged from the kitchen. She came out of the kitchen and entered the living room. Monica was small, but the kitchen too was small, not much larger than a cupboard. She felt she needed a bit of fresh air. She had heard the shouting. Who shouted? The father had now come to see what was going on. Where else are they to play? She challenged Django. The children were playing, and his wife was asking Django, where do they play? Do they play outside? Challenged, or disagreed with him. Anywhere they can play, but in my ear, but not in my ear, replied Django. I have a headache. We have to learn to share the space we have, said Monica. How do you think they feel when you keep them up all night with your snoring? Monica said, how do you think they feel when you keep them up all night with your snoring? Our Django had a habit of snoring in the night. Snoring make loud noise while sleeping, or sudden explosive sound through the nose. He used to make while sleeping. And when he made sound, the children caught up and they became afraid, and their sleep was disturbed, and they have been awake all night sometimes. That was the complaint of his wife, Monica. I would know about that, said Django, snorting. I am asleep at night, so how would I know what my snoring sound like? Well, I can tell you, the wife replied Monica, like a buffalo running through here. So what was the snoring like? It was like a buffalo running through the house. That was the type of sound he used to make while sleeping. The children tried to muffle means stop or stifle their giggles, snigger, giggles. laugh lightly. That is called giggle. And I can see and hear you very well, said Django, looking at them out of the corner of his house. He looked at them like this. I can see you were laughing. That is what he said, looking at the children. And out of the corner of his house, his eyes, the giggling stopped abruptly, suddenly, and then started again. When their mother winked, she seemed to be on their side. Monica shook her head, smiled at the children, and returned to the kitchen. Anton took out his pack of cards and seating himself at the dining table, began to shuffle them noisily. Yano found her rag doll and began to talk to it on the floor. So, what's you been doing these days? The child was chirping, or chipped, made shrill, sharp sound. Hold the doll aloft. Put the doll above her head. Django sighed and opened his newspaper again. After a few moments, he threw it aside, rose from his chair, and made for the front door. He went to the front door. That's enough, he said loudly, opening the door. Monica, I'm going to see where's Eva in the village. Perhaps she can help me with my problem. I'll be back for dinner. Before Monica could come out of the kitchen or reply, Django had stepped out and slammed the door. Django went out of the house and closed the door. Django ambled towards the village, walked slowly, ambled towards the village, muttering, massaging his temple, muttering, making small sound, and massaging his temple means he was massaging his temple and kicking stones as he went. And on the way he might have seen stones, and he kicked the stones that loose stones he saw on the way. Soon Django arrived at a pretty cottage adorned with purple and orange bougainvillea, a flower. You can see the flower there in the picture. He straightened his jacket, then knocked on the door. Eva was small, like his wife, but much older. Her white hair parted in the middle and flowing over her shoulders. Look at the look at her. Parted, the hair is parted in the middle, and the hair is flowing over her shoulders, made her look like a witch. Who is witch? A woman thought to have magic power. All she needed was a clock. If she want to be a witch, actual witch, needs to have a cloak. Cloak means a sleeveless outdoor cloak. Usually people wear when they go out of the house. Cloak. And a broom to complete the picture. If she hold a broom and a clock and wear a clock, she become a witch. That is what his thought is. Now, she now appeared smiling in the doorway. Coming, Django, she said, jovially, opening the door wider. What pleasant surprise! Good evening, Eva, mumbled Django. Forlornly. So forlorn? Lost man, something like that. Forlornly. It has been a long while. Yes, a long time indeed, agreed Eva, showing him to an armchair in her cozy living room. Cozy? Causing a feeling of comfort. Living room. Did you sort out the problem with your vegetables patch? When that means she has been a regular visitor to Eva, and she was raising some problem about his vegetables, and she suggested a solution, and she was asking, and did you sort out the problem with your vegetable patch? Yes, replied Django. Thanks to your advice. The birds have stayed well clear of my garden ever since. So what he followed the instruction given by Eva to solve the vegetable patch. Now the birds are not not seen in his garden. He could keep the birds away from the garden. Good, said Eva, with a kindly smile. And what can I do for you today? Your expression tells me there is something on your mind. Django? Well, there is, Eva, sighed Django. He breathed, heavy breath. He breathed. He took a long breath and gazing at the embers in the fire. I am not a wealthy man. He was gazing at the embers in the fire. You see, there is fire in the visiting room. In cold countries, they keep fire in the drawing room in order to keep warm people who visit, because it is cold country. In the cold country, it is like that. Well, there is Eva, said Django. sighed Django, gazing at the embers in the fire. Looking at the fire, the embers in the fire. Embers means candle in the fire. I am not a wealthy man, Eva. I have barely enough to feed my family. I have only enough to feed the family. Money, what money he gets is only enough to feed the family. However, I simply can't go on like this. Go on like what? Asked Eva, settling down. My house is too small, cried Django. The lack of space is driving me mad. The children are noisy. My wife snores at night. When carts rumble past, a rumble make a continuous deep and resonant sound. Rumble. A rumble past on the road. The crockery rattles. Crockery means the kitchen tools. Rattles make sound. Now I long for some space and some peace. He was much interested in long for. He'd like very much for the peace and more space in his house. Well, I never, exclaimed Eva. Said Eva. You have a lovely house. Eva said, you have a lovely house? Yes, yes, agreed Django. It's nice, but I wish it were bigger and quieter. Like Mikhail's mansion down the road. There was a Mikhail. He has a very big house. He called it as mansion. He wanted a house like that. Ah, but I could never afford a house like this in a million years. What is million? 10 lakh we call it as million. So even 10 lakh years after, he wouldn't be able to build a mansion like that of Mikhail on the roadside. Mikhail's house is large, I must admit, agreed Eva. But you should be happy where you are, whether it is a big house or small house. You should be happy where you live. That was the advice given by Eva. What can you do for me, Eva? I am in a difficult situation. My house is small. My children are noisy. My wife, what my wife does in the night? She snores and something more. And when the cars rumbling fast, the 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 crockery rattles all these problems in his house. There is no space. What can you do for me, Eva? Asked Dango. How can you make my life better? I'm not happy. Eva gazed silently, looked steadily and intently, something, something in admiration or intently, silently at the fire for a while before turning to face Django. What did she do, Eva? She gazed silently at the fire. Gazed means look steadily and intently in admiration. Gazed silently at the fire for a while before turning to face Django. You must do exactly as I say. She said, do you agree? Sure, said Django, hope rising in his eyes. Without a question, asked Eva. Yes, without question, replied Django. I will not ask any other question. Well then, said Eva, if I remember, if I remember correctly, you keep a cow and several other animals in barn at the bottom of your garden. Do you keep like that? That is a barn where you keep animals and birds. That's right, I have a barn in my garden, said Django, looking a little astonished. He was surprised. Well, said Eva, I want you to go straight home and move them all into your house. Django stared at her disbelievingly. He was astonished. But, but he stuttered. Talk with, stuttered means talk with continued involuntary repetition of sounds. Like that, repeating the same sound. No, birds? No, nothing, said Eva abruptly. You promised. Now go. Django rose slowly. He said nothing further, but nodded his head and left the cottage. Monica, Anton, and Iona were most surprised when Django told them on his return to wait a while before dinner and scuttled ran quickly off to the ball. They stood and watched, aghast. They opened their mouth wide and stood as he brought into the little house first the goose. Can you see that in the picture? Goose, then followed by chickens, then two goats, and finally the cow. They have to stay here with us, announced Django. Eva told me to do this. The children were amused. Children were happy and excited to be sharing their home with the animals. But Monica thought her husband had left his sons somewhere on his way. That means Monica thought her wife, husband has become mad. For some days, the house was a turmoil, confusion, at confusion and a state of upheaval. At night, Django snoring was the least of their problems. Before the animals were brought into the house, Bango snoring was a problem for them while sleeping. But Bango's problem has become nothing now. That was the least of their problem. Nobody got any sleep because of the constant noise and movement in the house. Nobody slept. One morning, after a particularly noisy and restless night, Django rubbed his eyes and announced, I am going to see Eva again at Eva's house. Django held his head in his hands, held his head in his head like this, and wept. At Eva's house, Django held his head in his hand and wept. Why are you? Why are you putting me through all this? Cried Django. The whole family is upset with me. We can't sleep and we fight all the time. The noise is deafening. Have you ever kept a cow or duck or other animals in your room? It is a hell, I tell you. Eva smiled. Yes, it is hell. She said softly. Well done, Django. Now I want you to go straight home and move all the animals back to the barn. No worse, just do it. Don't ask me anything else, just do it. Django returned to his house and did as he was told. He, Monica, and the children spent the rest of the day cleaning up the mess made by the animals. After the house was back to normal, Django stretched out in his armchair. The children played noisily with their toys in one corner. Monica clattered pots and pans in the kitchen. Hi, sighed Django, and thought to himself, how nice it is. The sound of my wife and the children in the background. Plenty of room, too. Home, sweet home. That's the end. Read it 10 times. Copy the lesson once, and the notes will follow immediately. Thank you.